All right. All right, first and foremost, I give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, which means, sorry. First and foremost, I give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh Ba'Shem, meaning in the name of Yahushai, Hamashiach, right, the Messiah. So this lesson today that I'm dealing with, is basically you fell, but get back up. And for those wondering, right here, what's burning is frankincense. There's nothing spooky. Frankincense is a holy thing inside the scriptures. It's over 20 scriptures on it. And I'm about to start into this lesson. So the first scripture we're going to jump into, if you can read along, you're going to want to open your Bible up and take notes. And listen real good and pause the video if you need to. So this is Proverbs 24 and 16. So Proverbs 24 and 16, right? It says this: For a just man falleth 7 times, and riseth up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief. So if you're a just man and you're being sincere, or a woman, because the King, I'm reading from the King James. It's a masculine, dominant text. But for the most part, if you're really a sincere or righteous brother or sister, and you fall, the number 7 is dealing with completion. When you go into Hebrew, it's not literal 7, but you can fall 3 times, 2 times, 1 time, 10. But the scripture says if you're sincere and righteous, you're going to get back up. You're going to keep on going and keep on thriving. But a wicked person is just going to fall into mischief and not get back up, right? And why does the Most High do that? It's because He's trying us, right? And also, like the apostles say, don't be just a hearer of this word, be a doer, right? So if you fall, you got to get back up. Whether you're falling out, whether you fell out, or you're not in this truth, you got to get down with this truth and get back up for the Most High God, right? And have faith in Him, and have faith in Yahushua. So I want to flip to, I want to go down to 17. We're staying in Proverbs 24, but we're going down to 17 and 18. When a brother or sister falls in this truth, or they fall out, or they're not in the truth, brothers and sisters shouldn't laugh and mock them. That's not a funny thing, because you could be next. And they need support to come back in and do this work, and live this life of righteousness, because this is what we need as a people, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and natives of Negro and indigenous descent, because we are the Israelites that have to inherit this Bible, which we're not doing right now, which is why we're getting jacked up and doing the things we're doing. But we'll jump down to verse 17 and 18. Pay attention and listen real hard and good. Rejoice not when thy enemy falleth, right? So the enemy could be of your people, just how we hate each other a lot of times today. That's what this is dealing with right now. The context, falleth, right? Don't rejoice when a brother or sister falls. Don't say yes, all praises, or laugh and make it a funny thing. And and let not the heart be glad when he stumbles. Don't be glad when a brother in this truth, whether in a different camp or not, and a sister that you don't like that much, or you don't like at all, or things like that you don't know, don't rejoice or be glad when they fall and stumble. That's supposed to be a sad thing. If you don't know them or if they don't like you, right? That's supposed to be a sad thing. You should want to help them to an extent, if they allow you to, right? Verse 18, at least the Lord see it. The Lord's going to see it. He's going to see you rejoicing and being glad, and they're fall and stumble, right? And it says, and it displeased Him. It's going to displease the Most High God. And He turn away His wrath from him. He's going to turn away His wrath from that person that you're rejoicing and laughing at. But it's not going to be turning His wrath away from him in a good way because of what you're doing. Most High going to jack your ass up after that, right? So this is so we're jumping to Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 to 7. Right, like I said, if you need to take notes or write these precepts down, pause the video, take time, digest this note. Right. So Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 to 7. Just repeat it. Right. So this is Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 to 7. It says, be careful for nothing, right? So brothers in this truth and sisters in this truth and brothers that fell out and sisters that fell out, again, this is for you. Brothers that fell out and sisters that fell out, you have hope. And ones that are stumbling right now, and the ones that, this is also for brothers that are not even struggling, to build yourself up, and sisters to build yourself up, so you can help individuals that struggling or fell out, or that need to come into this understanding, this truth of knowing that we are Israel's. Right? So I'm going to start over from the top of Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Let your request be known unto God. So be very careful and do everything by prayer. Prayer is a very powerful, strong thing, which we don't do and we take for granted a lot of times. As brothers and sisters come into this truth and they follow the law, but they don't have the faith and the spiritual understanding. And then brothers in Christianity and sisters in Christianity only have faith, but they don't have the law. We got to have a balance of both, right? And that's what we got to be doing. We got to be staying in prayer and let our requests be known to God. If we're struggling with lustful desire, adultery, stuff like that, you have an addiction, you're smoking weed, you're doing drugs, or even if it goes as far as to is something very bad, like your sister that's being a whore basically, or brother's being a whoremonger. Pray to the Most High God to get that spirit off you. Let that request be known unto Him, right? And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Yahweh Shah Mashiach, or who the world ignorantly calls Christ Jesus, right? So that peace is going to be on you, in your heart and your mind, which in the Hebrew, your heart is dealing with your mind ultimately. But your emotions and your logical thinking are going to be in check once you get these prayers and requests known unto God. But in order for your prayers to even be heard, like Proverbs says, you got to keep the law. And in the New Testament, it talks about sinners are not heard by God. So you got to be keeping this law for your prayers to even be heard. But that's a whole nother lesson I did. You can check it out. Is the law done away with? You can read that and watch that video. And it's going to go into keeping the law. And if you don't keep the law, your prayers are not going to be heard. The Most High, but ultimately the Most High can use anyone, right? Because to be honest, I'm a low-level nobody. The Most High can use brothers that are drug dealers, or used to be, or brothers that are currently doing these things. He can use them and convert them to righteousness. Sisters that were whores, that gave themselves up, adulterous women, adulterous, brothers that are fornicators, whoremongers, all that. He can use you still and bring you to this truth and get you right. When you look at Saul was a wicked individual. Saul was, like, he thought what he was doing was righteousness, but he was killing Israelites. And he threw his coat down in approval of the killing of Stephen, right? But the Most High came to Saul even though he was a killer. And even though he came to Saul and used him, he still was getting judgment. Saul was still getting judgment, but he was still being used for righteousness, right? But I want to read that right now. Acts chapter 9, verse 1 to 6. All right. So it says, and Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest. So Saul, the apostle, his name was changed to Paul later on. But it says that he was breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord unto the high priest. He was basically wishing death and throwing curses on them. And that's often evil toward Israelites. It says, verse 2, and desired of him letters to Damascus, the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them down unto Jerusalem. So if he found brothers and sisters in this truth, doing this understanding, he was going to bring them unto Jerusalem. He didn't care if they was a woman or a man. As he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shone round about him a light from heaven. So a light came from, the sky onto him, and he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest me? So this is Christ speaking right now. The letters in red, right? Verse 5, and he said, who art thou, Lord? So Paul is speaking. Who are you? Right? And the Lord said, I am Jesus, or Yahushua, whom thou persecutest. For it was hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And he, trembling and astonished, said, Lord, that wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. So he told Saul to rise and get up and go into the city. So Yahushua is dealing with him right now, telling him, arise and go, go do what I have to do. Like, go do what I need you to do. So Yahushua is speaking to him. And this is already after he was he was glorified up into heaven. And he was telling Saul, like, I need you to do some stuff for me. So I mean, if Yahushua came to him, obviously the Most High God had to be dealing with him and using him to an extent. I want to jump into this next verse that I was talking about, because when you read all throughout the scripture, even though Saul was being used in righteousness, he was still getting judged. And when you deal with, and I want to go to that, Ecclesiastes 3:16, right? Let me see. Ecclesiastes 3:16, right? It says this. It says, and moreover, I sought under the sun, right? The place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. So righteous individuals and wicked individuals were under the sun on earth. So that's where the judgment takes place. And it says iniquity was there. What is iniquity? Iniquity is sin. Now, can somebody in this understanding make a mistake and go off and sin? Or unknowingly do it, or willingly do it? Yes to all of it. They could, but they got to stay diligent in prayer and around like-minded individuals. The righteous could be a brother that's like, let's say he's doing his work, he's going to camp, he's teaching our people, he's uplifting people, he's doing extra work behind the scenes. He makes a mistake. He's poor. I'm not the Most High. There could be grace, like there's a grace period for that. The Most High may not jack him up as crazy, but there's still going to be a judgment for that. The fact that he sinned, because the Most High God is a just God, so he still is going to put out a judgment. It might not be really crazy, but if you willingly sin, because I'm going to pull that out, that you more than likely, you're going to definitely get a judgment if you willingly sin. Which that's why Paul was getting destroyed, because he knew the law, so he knew he wasn't supposed to be doing some of the things he was doing. I want to go into this. David was very young and didn't really have a name yet. Because you might think, like, I'm wicked. Like, you thinking to yourself, you're a wicked individual. You can't come back to the truth. You already did too many things that was wrong. You did a lot of things that was bad and horrible, which you probably did. You probably are a piece of shit, just like I am a piece of shit, but Most High God is using me. But just because you may be a piece of shit and you did some wicked things, or you're currently doing it, you have time. Repent. There's a grace period right now. And if you don't do it, and do it with haste, God is also a God of love. He's a God of wrath. So you don't turn back. I mean, I can't really answer what's going to happen to you. But I want to jump into this about David. 1 Samuel 17:50, right? First Samuel 17:50. It says this. It says, so David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him, right? But there was no sword in the hand of David. So when you deal with the story that's going on right now, in particular, David basically, he was a very, they depict him as being a very small individual and a very young person at this time, but he was still used by God. And this particular Philistine that he was over, like he hit with a sling, was dealing with Goliath. That was the particular Philistine that he had hit with the sling. And even though he was very small and Goliath was so big and huge, he still prevailed over him because the Most High was dealing with him. So anybody can be used. Right? No matter how big or small you are. Your problems can be big as Goliath was to David. You may feel small as David, whether it be you struggling with weed, whether it be you struggling with worldly things, around the wrong people, whether you're in college, you're a young individual, or you're an older individual, just around the wrong people on the block. Or even something as worse as you falling out the truth, which is that falling out the truth, you get an extreme judgment for that. Like on earth, people think about, like people don't understand, after you get judged too, but on earth the Most High can make you suffer. He could jack your ass up, he could take individuals from you, he could jack your mom up, your family, he could hurt people that's in your life to judge you, and to judge them because of things they doing too. But if God is on your side, who can overcome you? Like, who could destroy you, right, basically? And if God is on your side, you can overcome anything, right? And I'm going to jump into that. Romans 8:31 and Philippians 4:13. I'm going to jump in Romans first. Romans 8:31. All right, it says this. It says, what shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who could be against us? So if God is with you, the Most High God, Yahweh, is with you, who could be against you? That's what you got to ask yourself. That's what you got to think. Who could be against you if the Most High is with you? All right. And then we're going to jump into Philippians 4:13 now. Right, it says this, and I can do all things through Yahweh Shai, right, which strengthens me, or Christ, or Hamashiach in the Hebrew, which the Most High gave him a power. He's our mediator, so we can do all things through the Most High God in the name of Christ, in the name of Yahweh Shai. That's what we got to understand. We got to understand the spiritual applications of this Bible. We got to understand how to fast, how to pray, how to do certain things. We got to understand how to keep this law. We can't just look at it as a carnal thing and just look at the history. We got to actually gain in wisdom and understanding, not just history or knowledge. We got to gain in that true understanding, right? Which is the law, more particularly. And I want to jump into the Apocrypha, right? If you don't have an Apocrypha and you just have a regular King James Bible, you're going to need to get you an Apocrypha. This is on Amazon, or you can go to Barnes & Noble. It's $10, right? Or you can get a 1611 King James Bible. It contains the Apocrypha. It contains everything. But this is Sirach 37:12, right? Sirach 37:12. I want to make a couple points over this. Sirach 37:12. It says, but be continually with a godly man, whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, right? Whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry. For sisters, you got to find a godly head, a godly husband. If you're in this truth, or you're falling out, or you fell out, or you're not in this truth and you're listening, you need to find a godly man, or godly friends, or sisters that are godly, that keep these commandments to the best of their ability. And that if you stumbling and falling, they're going to sorrow over it. They're not going to laugh and rejoice over it, or say, F that bitch, or this and that and third. They're going to sorrow and try to help you. And brothers need godly friends, or godly brothers to be around. You know, brothers that's in this truth of being an Israelite, that know they are Israel, and they keep these laws, statutes, and commandments, and love their people to the best of their ability. And like I said before, sisters need female friends in this truth. You shouldn't be a sister with 10 or more. Like, you shouldn't have so many male friends and no female friends as a sister. That's not healthy, especially vice versa with men. You shouldn't have so many female friends and not as many male friends, right? And if you do have female friends, at least let the ratio be more male friends if you're a male, and if you're a woman, let it be more female friends, right? It's not a good thing to be around. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And why is it important for us to find friends, or if you're a woman, to find a head that's in this truth? Zephaniah 2:1. It's simple, right? Gather yourself together. We need to gather with Israel. Don't matter the camp, the church, the congregation, as long as they keep in the truth, which is the law, statutes, and commandments, through Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, knowing that we're Israel and the God of Israel is our God and dealing with us. That's the truth. That's what it boils down to, right? And we're going to get the kingdom. So Zephaniah 2:1. I want to get back into that. Right. Zephaniah 2:1. It says this: gather yourselves together, ye gather together, O nation not desired. Who's the nation not desired? So-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans of Negro and indigenous descent, right? And those that are of Israel that are scattered abroad that may not go by those terms, that don't know. We are a nation not desired. We are hated. We are downtrodden. We are the ones that need to gather together and stop hating each other, right? We need to talk and build on this truth. And even on a carnal level, if you're dealing with being social and all that stuff, you could do that. But that's what we need to do as a people, come back together. The people around you, it matters a lot. Like there's a saying that you're the average of the 5 people that you're around the most. But I want to dive into this next verse real quick. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33 to 34, right? So it says this, 33 to 34, chapter 15 of 1 Corinthians. Be not deceived, right? Don't be deceived, brothers and sisters. Evil communications corrupt good manners. So if you're young and you're in college, right? You're in high school, or you just going to social events, and then are you somebody that's a little older and such on, it applies to everybody, whether you're 30, 20, 40, 60, 70. You could be a good person in this truth and be around just evil people all day, or people that's corrupt or evil according to this Bible. If they're not following these laws, statutes, and commandments in this Bible, they're evil according to the Bible. Because they don't adhere to righteousness. They want to do things and don't have a moral compass and don't care. So it don't matter how you feel about what I'm saying right now. They're evil. And if you are doing the same thing, not adhering to these laws, statutes, and commandments, you're evil too. But it's okay, because you got to change, right? You got to become a new creature through Yahweh Shai, or through Christ. So don't be deceived if you're around evil people all day, especially you sisters, which are the weaker vessels, spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally, which is why you got to be continually with a godly man and around other sisters that are in this truth. Let me continue to the next verse, 34. Awake to righteousness and sin not. So awake to righteousness. If you fell out or you're falling, awake to righteousness and sin not. Stop sinning. Stop going off and not following the law. Stop eating pork. Stop sleeping with a bunch of men if you're a sister, right? And stop being a brother sleeping with a bunch of women and leaving them. Or getting sisters pregnant and leaving. Stop doing that stuff. Stop having the evil eye towards your brother. Sin not. But some have the knowledge of God, right? Some have the knowledge of God. Like, oh yeah, I knew I was an Israelite, or I know, and speak this to your shame, right? So you just keep the law, man. Be around godly individuals and try your best. Stay in prayer, fasting, try to meditate on the scriptures. Having friends in the truth will help build you up in certain areas that you need, right? And I want to read this from Proverbs 27. I only can read it from the King James because I don't have internet right now where I'm at. But if you can, read this in other translations, like the Amplified Bible and the NLT and the ESV. Proverbs 27 and 17. To give you more of an understanding, because comparative text is great. But I'm going to read this. 27 and 17. Iron sharpeth iron, so a man, right, or woman, sharpen the countenance of his or her friend. So if you're a brother or sister in this truth, what we gotta do is we gotta sharpen each other up. We gotta build each other up, give each other positive things, get each other out of negative thinkings, negative environments, negative actions. We gotta give each other positive thinking, positive actions, positive environments to go to, right? Certain things like that. Because as iron sharpens iron, we must sharpen the countenance. The countenance is dealing with the whole spirit and demeanor and face and stuff of the person you're talking to, right? And yourself. So we gotta sharpen each other's countenance. The next verse I'm gonna dive into, if we stay in, is dealing with the same context, is Psalms 1. Everybody should know this one. Psalms 1, right? We're going to start at verse 1, and we're going to read this whole chapter, all the way down to 6. It says, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, or woman, right? Nor sitteth in the way of sinners. A sinner is somebody that doesn't keep the law, statutes, and commandments of the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, and what Christ says. So when you read about, it's in the New Testament somewhere, it says sin is you could look it up. Sin is transgression of the law, basically. Nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and his law doeth he meditate day and night. So you're thinking on this law, you're doing this law, you're reading this law every day, all the time. You're around people that's talking this law. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of the water. So you're going to be like a tree planted by the rivers of the water, right? That bringeth forth his fruit and his season. His leaf also shall not wither. Whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. So when you keep this law, you're going to be like a tree planted by the river. You're going to have a lot of fruit. And that fruit is your actions, dealing with your actions, what you're doing. Yahushua talks about that in the New Testament. You know, the good tree and the bad tree bringing forth good and bad fruit. That's dealing with your actions. And it's these good actions that you're going to be having, you're not going to wither away and start stumbling, right? You're going to prosper in the things that you do. As Joshua says, you're going to prosper in Joshua chapter 1, verse 8, I believe. That when you keep these laws and you meditate on it, you listen to the Most High, you're going to prosper in everything you do. Your house not going to be built in vain. Verse 4, the ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. So these other wicked individuals, especially people that's in the truth is acting, they're going to get driven out. They're going to fall down. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. He knows, like the Most High God, you got to understand, you got to have peace and knowing this. In Sirach 2 it says this. The Most High God, if you're a righteous individual, really sincerely trying, don't beat yourself up about things. Like, if the Most High God, he knows what you're doing. He sees the struggles and things you lost and losing. He's not going to sit there and give you an unexpected end. And he knows that the ungodly are on a wicked type time. They're going to perish and get destroyed. So you got to have peace and understanding in that. So I'm going to go to Sirach 25 and 1. We back in the Apocrypha. This applies to brothers and sisters. 25 of Sirach chapter 1. It says this. And 3 things I was beautified and stood up beautiful before God and men. The unity of brethren, right? Our sisters. The unity of brothers and sisters. And the love of neighbors. The love of neighbors. The love of our people. They're out there, right? And a man and a wife that agree together. So we got to be unified in these 3 things. This is a start. Unity with brothers and sisters, and unity with our people that's just out there in the world, but to an extent where we're being a light onto them. And if you're in a courtship or a marriage, you got to try to agree more together. We got to try to get beautified in those 3 things. That keeps you grounded a bit more in this truth. That's a start. That keeps you grounded, because that community building and the prayer and the fasting and getting rid of certain things in your life is very powerful, and it's true. Alright. So now we're going to jump into Sirach chapter 6, verse 6 to 17. Sirach chapter 6, verse 16 to 17. Like I said before, if you're trying to take notes and write down these precepts, pause the video and rewind it. It doesn't hurt to do so and come back to the video. Alright. Sirach chapter 6, verse 6 to 17. It says, be in peace with many, Nevertheless, have one counselor of 1,000. Right? And this is dealing with, the verses I'm about to read after this is dealing with the righteous people that we're supposed to be around in this truth. To stay grounded, to come back, or to get back on our feet from stumbling out the truth. And if you fell out, you should be trying to be around righteous individuals if you know you want to come back and do the right thing. If thou wouldest get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him. So you're going to get a friend that's in this truth. And this is also dealing with marriage and courtship, but the context I want to focus on more particularly is the friendships. But this is for marriage, because being grounded in this truth as a woman, too, you're going to need a godly man to be around. But if thou wouldest get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him. So if you get a friend in this truth, prove him. Put them through tests. Don't be hasty to credit them just because they're doing righteousness that you only seen for a week. Now you're giving them the benefit of the doubt. Test this individual. See how they spirit is set. But some men is a friend for his own occasion, and will not abide in the day of thy trouble. So some men only going to be a friend for their own occasion. They're not going to abide in the day of your trouble when you're going through it. Right? And it says, Slaki, and there is a friend who being turned to envy and strife will discover thy reproach. Again, some friends are a companion at the table and will not continue the day of thy affliction. Some will be a companion at the table, but not going to continue in your day of affliction when you're falling or you're falling out the truth. Right? They're going to laugh. Like I said, they're going to try to laugh, say, oh, that nigga's wicked, F him. Right? You got to stick around, build this sister or brother up. Again, some friends are a companion. Slaki, let me skip down to verse 11. But in thy prosperity he will be as thyself, and will be bold over thy servants. And if thou be brought low, he will be against thee, and will hide himself from thy face. So when you go low, when you're prospering, they don't want to be around you when you're prospering in the world of the truth. But when you fall, and you stumble at the truth a little bit, even in the world, with a worldly understanding, when you lose all your money, they're going to try to not even be around you. They're going to try to hide from you when you're going through it. Separate thyself from thy enemies, right? They're being an enemy, even though our people, they're being an enemy. It says separate from them. And take heed of thy friends. Take heed and figure out who are the true friends that you're supposed to be around to stay grounded or come back or stay from stumbling in this truth, right? It says a faithful friend is a strong defense, and he have found such as one found a treasure. So if you find this, you're going to find a treasure. Nothing doeth count a faithful friend, and his excellence is invulnerable. A faithful friend is the medicine of life. They that fear the Lord shall find him. So a faithful friend is going to be that medicine to life. They're going to help you stay in the spirit. They're going to help you laugh when you're going through it. They're going to help you understand, bro. When you're going off, you got to chill on this. That's the medicine of life. That's a treasure that you got to find, brothers and sisters. And a sister that, if you find a head, you got to find something like that. Right? So now we're going to jump into Proverbs 24 and 16. Well, I'm about to burn some more incense.